Hey guys, it's Daniel. Welcome back.
The following is from Jim Morrison, Life, Death, Legend by Stephen Davis. I have a lot of videos about the Doors and specifically about Jim Morrison on my channel. If you want to see more and you want to support, the best way is to subscribe, like, and share. Quote,
around late 1966, Elektra Records began to assemble its campaign to promote the Doors. Elektra's biography of the Doors included Jim Morrison's artistic manifesto, which goes as follows, quote, "You could say it's an accident that I'm ideally suited for the work I am doing. It's the feeling of a bowstring being pulled back for 22 years and suddenly being let go. I am primarily an American, second a Californian, third a Los Angeles resident. I've always been attracted to ideas that were about revolt against authority. I like ideas about the breaking away or overthrowing of established order. I am interested in anything about revolt, disorder, chaos, especially activity that seems to have no meaning. It seems to me to be the road towards freedom. Rather than staying inside, I start outside, reach the mental through the physical. I am a Sagittarian, if astrology has anything to do with it, the centaur, the archer, the hunter. But the main thing is that we are the Doors. We are from the West. The whole thing is like an invitation to the West. The sunset, this is the end. The night, the sea. The world we suggest is of a new Wild West. A sensuous, evil world. Strange and haunting. The path of the sun, you know. Toward the end. At least for our first album. We're all centered around the end of the zodiac. The Pacific, violence and peace, the way between young and the old." End quote. Jim Morrison's anarchic screed wasn't lightly released by Elektra. According to John Densmore, old pro Billy James, while working on the Doors bios, muttered under his breath, "Too much power in Jim's hands could be very dangerous." Prior to the photo shoot that made Jim Morrison a legend, Jim was taken to star hairdresser Jay Sebring's salon on Fairfax Avenue in West Hollywood to have his hair cut. Sebring was the barber to the stars, having invented a new style of cutting and sculpting long hair with little Italian blow dryers. It was a cool operation, with sexy barefoot starlets handling the shampoo chores. Sebring's clientele included Steve McQueen, Warren Beatty, Paul Newman, and Peter Fonda. He was a consummate Hollywood swinger, and drove a racy AC Cobra Ford Mustang that he parked outside the salon. Jim Morrison coveted this car from the moment he saw it. Sebring styled Jim's long and unruly mane of brown locks into a tousled coiffure that resembled the marble bust of Alexander the Great, then displayed at the Getty Museum in Malibu. Photographer Joel Brodsky took the famous black and white pictures that presented Jim Morrison as a bare-chested incarnation of classical Aryan manhood, a hypnotically gazing Adonis with a circlet of love beads around his neck. Later on, when Jim had radically changed his appearance and repudiated the persona depicted in Brodsky's pictures, Elektra executives joked that Jim Morrison had only actually looked that good for about 20 minutes. Then there were the press releases and artist bios. These were assembled by Elektra secretary Sue Helms and edited by Billy James and geared to the pre-Rolling Stone teen mags in the form of personal fave lists and dopey questionnaires. The bios of the other three were usual, boring, fan-driven boilerplate, although Densmore referred to his bandmates as these creeps. But Jim Morrison's bio was unlike anything the press had ever seen before. Jim had been reading his McLuhan and understood, as he later put it, that the interview was an art form that should be prepared like any other art. Jim's term for this was calling signals, echoing the football quarterback's audible commands to his teammates at the line of scrimmage. Beginning with his first Elektra bio, Jim Morrison launched his campaign to spread chaos and anarchy through American youth culture via poetry and rock music. Jim Morrison's bio ran perversely against the cheery tone of hippie media sprouting out of California and identified Jim as a dark, challenging, mysterious, and provocative rebel and seeker. In particular, one part of his bio really stuck out to many observers. Under the section Family Info, it just said, "dead." 2 years later, Jim told interviewer Jerry Hopkins that the claim that his parents were dead was a joke. Around this time in late '66, when Elektra was preparing its campaign for the Doors, Jim Morrison celebrated his 23rd birthday on December 8, 1966, with Pamela Corson at home in Laurel Canyon. She was wearing a wedding ring now and had begun to call herself Mrs. Morrison. They borrowed a car and went for an early evening ride along Mulholland Drive, which wound westward through the dry Hollywood Hills. Pam, in one of her goofy, dangerous moods, kept trying to grab the steering wheel from Jim and run the car off the road and onto the gravel edges of the steep cliffs, just for kicks. Jim Morrison and Pamela Corson spent the Christmas season together in a motel room in the desert town of Palm Springs. During the days, they explored the palm-lined secret canyons where the Agua Caliente Indian tribes had lived in oasis-like splendor amid the searing heat of the desert. At night, Jim read Ezra Pound's cantos to her by candlelight. On New Year's Eve, the Doors played a private party in Montecito, a Santa Barbara suburb. Now it was fateful 1967. Soon, the Doors album would be released, and Jim Morrison's private life would be over forever.